Hey guys, my name is Ryan, and welcome to Overwatch Central. Today I wanted to go over some various bits and pieces that we just haven't really spoken about yet on the channel, talking about more potential changes to Reaper and what it might affect, why I think it's a good idea mostly, but it also could be a terrible one. Wendy's the restaurant was streaming Overwatch the other day, as well as Valiant making something glorious which we'll go over at the end of this video. Let's start off however talking about Reaper. Of course Miska did a video yesterday which we'll cover a little bit today, just kind of reminding you, if you didn't see it, of how big the stats are for Reaper. But this was another topic of discussion on IDDQD's stream. We went over this because there might be some buffs coming to Winston, Moira, Symmetra, and Zarya, and any form of beam ticking damage with how it interacts with armor. Much like that video, I want to start with a clip with IDDQD and main balancing person Jeff Goodman talking about Reaper, the pros and the cons at the moment, because it does set up what we're going to go over afterwards very nicely.
Right, I really hope that people don't just replace D.Va with a Reaper now and keep the same comp that we've been seeing. I saw some of that yesterday when we're playing, and it's really strong. Yeah. And basically what you do is kind of like protecting my creep, but instead you're protecting the Reaper. And it's just I did it yesterday, and I felt like I couldn't be killed. Like it felt really strong in a way. Maybe a little bit too strong, but that's the thing I was talking about before. I like the silver lining. Is he too strong or is he too weak? I don't really know.
The thing about him is he's so counterable. In multiple ways. I mean, obviously there's the range. He has very poor range, so Pharah's, if you can get in a spot where Pharah can bomb him, you can't do anything about that. But also, like, he's incredibly susceptible to CC, especially now that when he's played, you're probably expecting a lot of his survivability to come from this leech now. So anytime you can stun him or defense matrix him or put a barrier in his face, like where he's not leeching, he's basically going to die. Or Wraith out, because you can always Wraith out, hopefully, if you didn't Wraith in, which you probably shouldn't have done if you did that.
So it's more of a generic conversation happening between the two, but IDDQD does suggest a good idea for another buff to add on top of Reaper, and it was interesting to hear Jeff's response here.
I think the smallest little buff, like what if you gave Reaper just a little bit more movement speed than the DPS, you know? Yeah. Or just in general.
In general.
Yeah, like you just give him a little bit more speed. Would he be too strong? Would it be? Because I feel like every time I talk to people, they're kind of like, his movement speed is not that good. Like you need to have a coordinated team to be able to play Reaper or whatever.
Yep. So a lot of that comes from that feeling when you're playing. It comes from just his short range. Yeah. So you feel immediately inadequate if they're like at even 10 meters. You're just like, I need to be closer, but I can't get closer because I can't, close. Yeah. And a lot of that's intentional in a way because, like what you're saying with D.Va, we like to keep the strengths of the heroes really strong. So at close range, when he's really deadly, he's like extremely deadly. It's a little bit crazy actually. And so a lot of his kit is revolving around finding a way to get in to where you need to be without just running at somebody, because like he's his ability to teleport hopefully behind people and sneak around is a lot of that. And over time we've reduced a lot of his audio stuff, like his this teleport, I can't remember the name right now.
Very iconic sounds too, like the sound cue, you're listening for it, but sometimes they catch me off guard. So yeah.
Now, as I said, this goes nicely onto another discussion. Of course, we highlighted all the stuff with Winston and that. In that post, we saw somebody called TryHexSub asking Jeff Goodman, if Reaper gets nerfed, and it seems that people want that to happen, we'll come on to that in a second, would you and your team change Shadow Step? Jeff says we still may do something with Shadow Step in the future, but it's not likely to suddenly become something you could do in combat such as a Tracer Blink or like a Moira Fade. It's meant to be a way to sneak behind enemy lines to drop on them and otherwise ambush them. In the past we've buffed it towards further reinforcing this direction, like increasing the range and reducing its sound range. There is a question I do have for you guys in chat though. Do you think the Shadow Step is the worst ability in the game? I'm not too sure on that, but to be honest, I can't think of any other abilities that just really underperform in the same way Shadow Step does. So it was really a response coming out of Jeff Goodman, seeming that they weren't keen on increasing the speed of Reaper, which is fair enough, and they don't look to be changing Shadow Step anytime soon. The reason why that's not necessarily bad news goes over the video that Miska put out yesterday. Reaper's popularity has increased 160% ever since these changes went into the game, which is still less than a week ago since this video went out. That is a pretty big impact on a hero that really didn't get used an awful lot in the first place and is now coming up in a big way. I've certainly spotted more Reapers than I ever have before in the games that I had last night, played a good 5 to 6, and Reaper was nearly in all of the games that I had in some capacity or another. And it's fairly easy to sort of think that gold and below, that's where Reaper is going to be a pub stomper. I was in some teams and against some teams that really struggled to deal with Reaper in any capacity, and these are meant to be like master diamond players going up against it. They should know better. So the good news really is that I don't think Reaper needs an awful lot more help. I think at the moment he's pretty strong right now, and I do think that it's best for the community to just sort of wait and see how these changes affect the hero. His popularity still might double in this case, and his win rate has gone up too, so these changes have had a really popular effect on the hero. It is just a case of waiting a couple of weeks to see if it's constantly going to rise, whether we see a little bit of a power creep coming out of Reaper, much like we did with Doomfist way back when. That's where we might start to see Reaper becoming incredibly meta. So I feel that any further changes to Reaper's speed boost or to Shadow Step to make it much better would maybe make this hero far too strong that it just becomes obnoxious. I don't really want to see Reaper get buffed, go up in popularity, be too strong that people complain about him, and then get nerfed again. That just is a waste of time from Blizzard's standpoint, in my opinion. But the bad news is that Shadow Step just is a really dull ability to use. I often don't feel like it gets used an awful lot by myself or other Reaper players when I'm with them. It's good for priming and setting up engagements and fights when they happen, but ultimately I just don't think it's that necessary for Reaper, really. It's an okay ability, the fundamental understanding of it is there, but otherwise I just think that there are so many other things that you could put in that Shadow Step spot for Reaper that would make it much more interesting and dynamic. I think Reaper at the moment is very much a wait and see kind of thing. It seems that Jeff Goodman is content with the state that Reaper's in, and that's not really any surprise. I think those that are still saying that Reaper is kind of bad, maybe missing the point and where Reaper can be incredibly strong in the right hands. But as Jeff Goodman highlighted, very easy to counter if you can deal with him, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. A lot of heroes in Overwatch are like that. Maybe none of these heroes don't get countered as much as Reaper, but the strength that Reaper can have when he gets his way, I think dwarfs a lot of different heroes in the game. As I said, I wanted to ask you guys if you think that Shadow Step is the worst ability in the game, whilst we go over this next topic of Wendy streaming Overwatch. Wendy's had only streamed 3 times in the past. Twice it streamed Fortnite, and 3 weeks ago they streamed some Rocket League, getting up to 10,000 viewers watching them at once. I don't know how many views that the stream got, as it hasn't shown up on twitch.tv, but the VOD got 1,200 views, so I imagine a good amount of people were paying attention to watching the stream. The stream had no voiceover and it was just quick play, so there wasn't a massive amount of stuff to talk about there. It's just a very weird thing to know. And lastly, I wanted to go over some stuff that LA Valiant did, recreating the intro of The Office, the US version. Personally, I think the US version is better than the UK one, but that's beside the point. Not only is this a great frame by frame comparison, but also you have some nice little things such as shredding a paper that says dive and printing a lot of pictures of goats. In and out being circled in the background. Just generally, it's a delight to watch, so I would definitely recommend going and watching that. The link is in the description below. But that's everything that I wanted to go over today. Just a nice quick short video going over the bits and pieces of news. It doesn't seem likely that we'll be getting any more Reaper changes, both buffs and nerfs, for quite some time. I do generally get the impression that Overwatch and Blizzard are quite happy with the state that this hero's in now that these changes have gone over to live. Let me know what you think in the comments below, like and subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time, take care, we'll see you then.